Welcome to the 2020-21 winter sports preseason webinar for Alpine and snowboarding. I'm Mike Ermer, the Western Competition Director for SOPA. I am joined tonight by Bruce Bach, our Senior Competition Director. We're going to go through a couple of items to kick off. We'll go through our housekeeping items that we normally go through about coaching certifications and whatnot. We'll go into some adjustments that have been made to the return to activities plan. We'll talk a little bit about a new event, new competition called the Fitness Heptathlon. Some really exciting opportunities there. We'll talk a little bit about the training and competition plan for our snow sports. Peel into some rules updates and then talk a little bit about some sport guides that we've put together to kind of help give you guys some thoughts and ideas as we go through this return to activities during the pandemic. And then we'll hit the questions at the end. This is set up as a webinar. We're going to ask everybody to stay on mute until the end. If you guys have some questions about particular topics, if you want to pop those in the chat feature, we'll take a look at them. Either whoever's not talking, Bruce or myself, will kind of monitor the chat, see if it's a question that we need to answer on the spot, or maybe if it's something that might be addressed throughout the presentation, and maybe we can recap at the end if there's still questions. This is going to be recorded. It'll be shared on our website. So the recording and the presentation itself will make it to the website because there are some links throughout that are going to be very useful for you, for all your coaches. So you guys will have access to that, and away we go. So the first little bit, these are some of the normal coaching topics that we cover at pretty much all of our season meetings. Some reminders that we still maintain a 1-to-4 coach to athlete ratio at all times. All of those ones, the volunteers, the coaches, must be Class A certified volunteers. As far as the sport-specific coaching certification, with the situation that we're all in, we're taking more of a relaxed, flexible approach this season. Certified coaches are preferred, but not necessarily required. Now, that's sport certified, not Class A certified. So if your Alpine or snowboarding certification has lapsed, we're going to be pretty flexible with that this year, just all things considered. A reminder, the way we've got coaches set up for competitions for team sports and individual skills, you must have at least one certified coach per team and at least one certified coach for individual skills. Alpine and snowboard fall under the next heading, individual sports. And so we require there must be at least one certified head coach per 25 athletes at training and competitions. All right, we adjusted that a little bit in the recent years. So for every 25 participants, athletes, unified partners, you have to have at least one certified head coach for every 25 of those. Athlete medicals, this was something else. I know some of the winter sport coaches may not coach as much in the fall, so they haven't gone through as much as the return to activity stuff. But we put a 6-month extension on athlete medicals if they expired between March and July. Long story short on this is, for the winter season, those extensions will be up. So if any of your athletes have an expiring medical or their medical is expired, we need to make sure you guys are getting on top of that, and we're re-upping those medicals as soon as possible. Reminder, and we'll hit this point a couple times throughout, and this is really kind of a sore spot, but it's what we have to do, is that high-risk individuals should not return to in-person activities, all right, until we make to Phase E. Phase E isn't on the schedule right now until the spring. We did Phase A through C. Bruce is going to go over those here in a little bit. In the fall, we're extending into Phase D for the winter. Phase E is something we're hoping to get into in the spring. Unfortunately, what we have deemed, or what are deemed as high-risk individuals, will not be able to participate until that point in time. Some quick reminders on job descriptions for the coaches and their levels of responsibility. Head coach has to be certified in the sport. They oversee essentially that whole sport program. An important thing that I'll hammer again on at the end, it's really important for head coaches to develop practice plans and share them with the staff, just so everybody's on the same page. And assistant coaches have an idea what's going on moving throughout a practice. They're responsible for double checking the athlete medicals, making sure, like we just talked about, those are up to date, and that all the assistants are Class A volunteers. And they'll work probably with the sport director or the sports and competition director with the local program, managing all required paperwork, making sure that the timelines are met. Assistant coaches are exactly that. They assist in supervising and managing the athletes at a practice or at a competition. They perform the duties as assigned by the head coach, and pretty much just oversee and assist the head coach in making sure that everything runs smoothly. There's deeper extensions and explanations on these roles. They can be found on our website under our coaches resource tab. Okay, now we get into the Visas portal. This is where we can get into training schools and more. This is Jen Tresp's dojo. This is where she really does a lot of her work. So inside of the Visas portal, so it's visas.specialolympicspa.org. If you have any issues with your login credentials, you can reach out to Jen or Rita Schofield. They can reset your passwords. Inside of the portal, though, the big one that's really useful is this training schools, webinars, and mores. A lot of the Lunch and Learn series that we do go up here. Some opportunities for continuing education for coaches, but also that's where you can request a training school. Jen has put on several virtual training schools, so they've been very well received. You can go in there and request to have a training school, or you can sign up for a training school under this training schools, webinars, and more tab, or the heading on the Visas skills, on the Visas portal. There's also, we'll talk a little bit about, you can request skill training interest for level 1. So if you're new to the sport, that's when you'll need to go through the skills course. If it's an experienced coach, they can apply for track 2. So if they have a lot of experience coaching the sport or being involved in the sport, there's an application process that goes through Jen to determine if they can be a track 2 coach and skip through the sports skills training schools. This is the only way now that you can register for a training school. So if you can get in there and take a look, it's a great resource. We got a couple more examples of what's inside of this Visas portal. Sport training application form. So once you go through the training school, you have to do 10 hours of practicum work with the head coach. All this information is uploaded right on this Visas website. You can see here a little bit, when you get it, you'll be able to zoom in. Under training schools, webinars, and more, there's a training application coach hours. So you go into there, this reporting form will populate. Under the job title, that's where you drop down and you find the sport that you are reporting hours for. You can enter the location, the date of the training, start time and duration. So start time and then however many hours you put in. Something that's pretty unique, though, that I found out doing this presentation with Jen last week, it only takes 3 hours for any particular date. And that's because we allow up to 3 hours for competitions to count towards these hours required to become a certified head coach. So it goes 3 hours at a time. Now you can go in there and drop all of your hours over the course of a couple of weeks. But for each individual date, it only takes 3 hours. You hit the save button, that'll be submitted to Jen and John Bronson to be reviewed. And then hopefully you guys will get cleared and get your 10 hours in. In the My Information tab, so next couple bars down from the training schools, you can go in there and you can check on the standing of your sports training application, the submitted hours. You can see if they've been reviewed, approved, or questioned, and you can communicate with Jen if there's any issues with any issues on your hours for those particular trainings and logging of hours. Also, under the Visas portal, you will find your Class A required trainings. This is a bit of an old drop down. There's been some renewals. Fit 5 is not a Class A required training, but for any of your coaches, maybe they're new, you need to get them Class A certified inside of their Visas portal. They can go straight in, do their general orientation, do their concussion training, do their protective behaviors. So it's all kind of one-stop shopping. They can get in and knock this stuff out pretty quickly. Continuing education opportunities on the website as well. There are a lot of virtual opportunities to renew your good standing of your coach's application. If you go under the volunteer resources, just on our standard Special Olympics PA website, you go under the volunteer resource centers, and then there are continuing education options right there, ready for all you guys to go in and knock out. Super excited about that. A lot of these online courses are great, quick and easy, but also very educational. So I highly recommend, a great way to renew an expiring coach certification. We're working on our communications with all of the coaches. We have the Facebook group. It is a closed Facebook group, but you can go onto your Facebook account, search for SOPA coaches. When you guys click on wanting to join, you'll have to answer what local program you coach with and what sports you coach. I monitor this. I get multiple requests per week, and there are many times where I have to reject an application because they don't give us what sport they coach and what program they coach with. So just 2 quick and easy questions. Fill those out, and I bring you on board. Lots of great information is shared on there. It's a very collaborative environment. And we also share a lot of information about upcoming SOPA events that you might miss on your regular Facebook feed. So please join. Our Lunch and Learn webinar series. It's a recorded series. We usually put them on, I think, one of the Wednesdays, like the 3rd Wednesday of the month. We do them in the afternoon. That's why it's a Lunch and Learn. We record them. They're about half an hour to 40 minutes. They're recorded. They're posted on the website. Also back in that resource page that I saw you. You can register for anything that's coming up. Some really good quality content has been in there. I've put on a number of them. If you want to learn how we allocate, sports slots to programs, I did that last year. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. We'll get those going back up again in January. We are always looking for topics. So if there's something out there that you guys think might be a good topic for a Lunch and Learn series, shoot Jen a text or shoot Jen an email. She'll do a little research on it and recruit the appropriate personnel to put on the Lunch and Learn. We've had guest speakers on there. They're really a great resource for you guys to not only have a chance to, because some of them do renew your continuing education, but also just some very good topics to learn a little bit more about SOPA and how we function. So the coaches training and progression plan. This is an opportunity for certified coaches to earn increasing levels of classification. You get a unique credential as well as a lanyard for that credential. So it reviews the coaches training and progression, and it reiterates to all coaches must be Class A volunteers with at least 1 sports certification as a coach. Once you're certified to become a bronze level coach, you need to do the Fit 5 activation, personal best performance goals, and coaching Special Olympics athletes course, which is being offered virtually. So super easy there. From there, you can earn your silver certificate by adding athlete goal setting and training for a minimum of 10 weeks. And then you have to take the Principles of Coaching course and Coaching Unified Sports. All of those will be taught virtually. I think they went live virtual this fall. Similarly, for gold, you'll have to add advanced sports skills training course and train athletes at least twice a week for 10 weeks, as well as developing a year-round training and wellness plan for your athletes. So a couple of hoops to jump through. I know we have some bronze level coaches. I think we might have moved some up into silver. And so it's just, it's a great little feather to put in your cap, working through with the Special Olympics athletes. Fit 5 is a program that we've been working on for a few years now. I know a lot of our programs have implemented it. It's super great. It's on the website. It's more than sports. It's more for health resources as well for your athletes. So making sure they're living a healthy a healthy lifestyle, as far as hydration, nutrition, activity. There's lots of information. Again, these links will all come out to you guys. Once you sign up, if you're interested, you'll be contacted by a SOPA staff member for more information. And it's something you can implement for just 5 to 10 minutes before, during, after practices to go through the materials. It is turnkey. There's nothing you guys have to come up with. It is all laid out within the Fit 5 materials that will be provided to you from the SOPA staff member once you sign up. So highly recommended. I know a lot of our athletes really have gotten involved and love the Fit 5 program, particularly with the nutrition and hydration portions. And we've seen a lot of improvement out of many athletes across the state. Some fun stuff. The Winter World Games, as you guys know, we got moved out of Sweden. Some logistical issues came up, but those have been rescheduled for 2022 in Kazan, Russia. Those will be January 22nd to 28th. It is still the athletes that we selected, I believe, from the 2018 Winter Games. There are 8 athletes that we've selected. We're still working through the paperwork, and I know there are some deadlines coming up. There's some coaches on here that have some athletes there. Medicals are due to me as soon as possible. So I need those stat so I don't have to go begging and pleading to the GOC for an extension that makes me look silly. So if you guys can please take care of those, that would be great. The 2023 Summer Games will be held June 16th to 25th in Berlin, Germany. More information to come out on that as we receive it. But we do have the 2022 USA Games in Orlando, Florida coming up. We've started to get the wheels turning on that. That'll be June 5th to 11th. There's some selection requirements, some requirements for consideration that we need to make sure the athletes are taken care of. There's an athlete pre-selection questionnaire that the athletes will need to fill out. The link is available here. It's available on the website. I sent some emails out to your managers, assistant managers, and sport and competition directors last week. That has the link in there as well, and a paper copy if necessary. So if your athletes don't have connectivity, there's a paper copy version. We highly prefer the online version. So even if your athletes fill out the paper copy and they get it back to you, you guys can pop on and fill it out online for them. Just makes it a lot easier for us to collect everything in one place. They're going to be required to have actively participated in at least one commit to fit activity from now through their typical competition season ending in Fall Fest next year. Now, the Commit to Fit is a program that we've rolled out. There are many opportunities for the athletes to participate. This meeting is one of them. So in-person activities, in-person training, virtual training in our phase A that Bruce is going to talk about here in a little bit. We've done the Strides Challenge, has been going on. And then we have our new fitness heptathlon that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. So we've got a lot of opportunities for the athletes to participate in this Commit to Fit program. The thing is that, a lot of our athletes haven't done a whole lot since March. We want to make sure that they are being physically active now. We think that's a relevant goal that they should be reaching to be considered for the USA Games in 2022. And then they have to have successfully participated in an overnight state level event, just so, we have tangible evidence that they can be away from home and function. So we're also currently accepting coach applications for our individual sports. Those will be found. There's a link here. They're also available on the website. Those are due back to me by January 31st. I was really fortunate and honored. I was selected to be the HOD for Team PA in 2022. Bruce, my co-pilot here, is going to be an assistant HOD. So we're super excited. I mean, Seattle was amazing for anybody that was there. New Jersey was outstanding. Super excited to get Bruce some exposure at the USA games and have him with the experience. And actually, with that, I will pass it over to Bruce Bach.
All right, thanks, Mike. So right now, I'm going to review some of the high-level return to activities. We did develop this, and we rolled it out back in late July, early August. So some of you may have coached fall sports and more familiar than this with others. But for those of you who did not coach a fall sport, I'm just going to give like a high-level overview. All right, Mike, next slide. So this graphic demonstrates how Special Olympics of Pennsylvania, how our return to activity plan directly aligns with the Pennsylvania Department of Health as well as the SOI guidelines. If you recall, back over the summer, the Department of Health initially utilized that red, yellow, and green phase. All of our programs had to be in that green phase in order to return to activities. Department of Health has no intentions on going back to that red, yellow, and green phase, but they did roll out a community transmission and tracking system. So we will be utilizing that tracking system to work with local programs and see what phases that they are allowed to participate in. The current tracking system that we will be utilizing now tracks if counties are in the low, moderate, or substantial phase. So that's how we will monitor the local programs and where they'll be able to train. So starting from the left, you'll see that SOPA's phase A, that virtual at-home phase, directly corresponds with the SOI phase 0, and phase 0 as well as the state Pennsylvania substantial level. So SOI's phase 0 and Pennsylvania's substantial level, all programs will need to be in that phase A, virtual at home phase. Moving over towards the right, you'll see SOPA's phase B directly corresponds with SOI's phase 1 with no more than 10 participants at a training site. Moving to the right, SOPA's phase C is within the parameters of the SOI phase 2 with no more than 25 participants at a training site. SOPA's phase D directly corresponds with SOI phase 2 with no more than 50 participants at that should be, actually 50 participants at a training site. Our last phase, all the way to the right, that phase E, falls within the parameters of SOI phase 3 with no more than 150 participants at a training site. So for the snow sports, including alpine skiing as well as snowboarding, we will be permitting a training site to move to phase D. Again, that phase D is no more than 50 participants at a training site. So the athletes this winter, they will either be able to participate in phase A, which is in person, phase B, less than 10, phase C, less than 25, and phase D, which is less than 50. As an FYI, in the fall, we did not allow any programs to go to that phase D. All right, Mike, next slide. So SOPA is characterized by the state of Pennsylvania as a recreational and amateur sport organization. So the recreational amateur sports, as I mentioned earlier, we're only allowed to participate in the green phase. If your county was green, you would be able to participate. So as I am sure you are aware, unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, there are significant increases to the COVID-19 cases, and the percent positivity rate is going up. And that's really a concern for us. So because of that, our Special Olympics has been evaluating the county transmission system, and you can see what it looks like there on your screen. We will be using the community transmission table to identify the current level of community transmission with each of the counties to determine what phase that you're allowed to participate in. Additionally, if you have children, you know that the Pennsylvania Department of Education also uses this data to advise the local counties and school districts of what the phases look like. So if you look at the low phase, so the three phases are low, moderate, substantial. The low phase has an incidence rate of less than 10 per 100,000. Moderate, you'll see it's 10 to under 100 in 100,000 residents. And the substantial is a greater than 100 incidents rates of per 100,000 residents. So that's how we will be tracking where programs are allowed to participate this winter. So Mike, next slide, if you could. So what does that actually mean? So effective December 1st, in-person activities may be conducted by SOPA programs that are in that low or moderate levels of community transmission. So again, like we said in the fall, all counties had to be in that green phase. Department of Health is no longer using that green phase, so now we will be utilizing that low and moderate level in transmission. So again, in order to return to in training this winter, programs will have to be in the low or moderate levels. In-person training and competition are not permitted in counties designated by the Department of Health as being substantial. So again, that substantial phase, if your county or local program is designated as a substantial phase, there is no in-person training in all athletes, and training will have to be done virtually. So moving on to the next slide. If your county is designated as having low or moderate levels of community transmission, and then let's say it gets reclassified to be in the substantial phase, once your county is in that substantial phase, you must stop training in person and return to that phase A, the at-home training. When a county is designated as substantial, the local program must shut down in-person activities for a minimum of 14 days. Our SOPA field directors will be communicating with each local program as well as their COVID-19 coordinators for each of the counties. The next slide, I'll give you a demonstration of what we mean by those 14 days. So if you start from the top, this report comes out every Monday. So let's say on Monday, November 2nd, we'll use Adams County just as a reference county. So on November 2nd, let's say that Adams County is in that substantial phase. So they will have to stop training and move on to that phase A. Again, when we look at the next report that comes out the following Monday, November 9th, let's say that Adams County is now in that moderate phase. So they will have to wait 14 days within this moderate phase in order to return to training. So again, that first week they're substantial. November 9th, they're moderate. So 14 days from then, they'll be able to return to in-person training on Monday, November 23rd. So again, it's that 14-day period that we would have to wait to move on to return to in-person training. Here is another example of how we would utilize this. So again, using that Monday, November 2nd date, let's say substantial for Adams County again. November 2nd, Adams County would have to shut down and use the phase A at-home virtual training. Again, that report comes out on Monday, November 9th. Again, Adams County is on that substantial list. So they cannot train that week at all. They have to train that weekend at home. The report comes out again on November 16th. Good news, Adams County is now out of the substantial and they moved into the moderate in Adams County. Again, once you're in that moderate phase, you have to remain in that phase for 14 days. So looking at Monday, November 16th, 7 days there. Monday, the 23rd, the report comes back out. And again, Adams County is in their moderate phase. Good news for Adams County. Then they can resume in-person training on November 30th. All right, for transportation, because of the red, yellow, and green designations going away, we had to revise our transportation to reflect the low level and moderate level. So within the low level, local programs at this time cannot travel in buses or vans. That should not be new unless you're new to coaching this winter, but in the fall, we also did not allow travel in buses or vans. Transportation is allowed outside of county lines to train and compete. That third bullet, you can see that it's highly recommended that participants avoid the use of public transportation and limit capacity when carpooling. This is something new that we added for this year, just because the new guidance and information that's come about COVID-19. So if you are carpooling, if an athlete is carpooling, we highly recommend that there's a limit for a car of 4 participants per car. Again, that would be a driver, a passenger, and then 2 athletes in the back seat or 2 individuals in the back seat. If you do have a larger vehicle that does have a third row, we would allow up to 6 individuals in that vehicle. Again, a passenger and the driver, 2 participants, 2 athletes in the second row, and then 2 athletes, participants in that third row. So that's how we would come up with that 4 or 6 individuals per vehicle. Again, we want to highly recommend that that seat in between athletes is kept vacant. So that way the participants are on either side and there's an empty seat in between the passengers in the car. If the athletes are traveling by public transportation, we highly recommend that they are following the SOI guidance as well as the CDC guidance, making sure that they're wearing a mask, make sure that they're maintaining a safe social distance of 6 feet. CDC highly recommends no shaking of hands, no touching. And athletes that are in carpool, we would recommend that they ask the driver to put the window down to get some circulation in through the vehicle. If SOPA is providing transportation, again, if a coach is providing carpooling, um, we do have to make sure that either the COVID-19 coordinator or a trained volunteer must conduct a screening protocol and complete the screening and tracking report form for all participants that are getting in your vehicle. So this is something that is for coaches. If you are carpooling the athletes, this needs to be done before they enter your vehicle or before they proceed to the activity. We want to make sure that athletes are completing that you're completing that screening and tracking form prior to proceeding to an activity. Again, this is to make sure that we have safety, thinking of safety first. That as part of that protocol, the athletes will also be getting their temperature taken, the same as they would for if they were in person. And that is the low level. Within the moderate level, again, local programs cannot travel on buses or vans. What is different about the moderate level is that transportation is not allowed outside county lines to train and compete. So in the low level, you can travel outside of your county. If you're in the moderate level, at this time, you're not allowed to travel outside of county lines. Again, the same recommendation and guidelines for traveling in the moderate phase as well as the low phase. Again, if SOPA is providing transportation, again, we want to make sure that we're providing that we're conducting the screening protocols and completing the screening and tracking forms for each of the athletes that are in your vehicle. So where can you find all this information? Everything that we talk about, either whether it's going to be on this call or anything that's related to COVID-19, any updates to the plan and specific guidance is all located on our SOPA website on the COVID-19 protocols webpage. Again, if you have not visited, I encourage you to visit it. All the information that related to return activities is located on that webpage. You'll find multiple training resources on there. Videos will be on there. Our return to activities, we have a condensed version that coaches can take with them to practice, so you don't have to drag around the 30-some page document, and you can have a condensed version for your reference at a training site. All the SOPA phases are in there. Let's talk to you about what each of the phases mean. There's a code of conduct and risk assessment form that all athletes will be needing to fill out prior to participating in an activity before they're returning to training. Again, each site will have a COVID-19 coordinator responsible at each site. They will have that code of conduct and they will be trained on how to do the trainings and having the athletes complete the risk assessment form. There is a video on there about training in a safe environment. So I highly encourage the coaches to view that as well. Again, at this time, high-risk individuals will need to stay home. There's a link right there, and also on the COVID-19 protocols page, there is information and a fact sheet about high-risk individuals. It outlines who high-risk individuals are, as well as some of the protocols for high-risk individuals. Some of the coaches' responsibilities that we outline is related to COVID-19. We want to make sure that you, as well as the COVID-19 coordinator, are educating the athletes, making sure that they're following social distancing, avoid shaking hands, that they're wearing PPE. We want to make sure that we are still being connected with the athletes that are high risk and are still training at home. So we're hoping that the coaches and take on that responsibility of working with those athletes who cannot train in person. Again, we want to make sure that if you are training in person, that all the athletes are wearing the proper PPE. Make sure that they're wearing that properly. That all athletes, when they're coming to a training site, they will bring their own water bottles. We don't want any shared jugs or water coolers at this time. Coincidentally, they should not be drinking out of a water fountain, so we want to make sure that they have their own water bottles and drinks for themselves. Again, one of the hardest things that we're going to have to do is ensure that athletes avoid shaking hands, fist bumps, and high fives. On the next slide, we talk about the athlete practice checklist. This is kind of an overview of what is required for athletes to bring into training. Again, they will be required to bring a face mask, their own water bottle. If there's any equipment that they need, that they each have their own equipment, or that their own equipment is provided to them. I don't see people using a towel in the winter, but in the fall months we did encourage athletes to bring a towel. If they do have a bag with them, we would encourage that they also bring hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes with them as well, just so they can use that throughout practice. Each of the COVID-19 coordinators in the training sites will be provided with PPE. The state office did mail out a significant amount of PPE to each of the programs. So if you are returning to in-person activity, I encourage you to reach out to your program manager to make sure that you have enough hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes for each of your training sessions. So next, I'll turn it back to Mike. He's going to talk to us about the fitness heptathlon. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So yeah, moving into the fitness heptathlon, I brushed on this a little bit earlier. This is really a great new program that we're rolling out, not just in SOPA, but on the national level as well. So the fitness heptathlon is an at-home option for all winter sport athletes. Okay, there's a fitness heptathlon website that there's a link here too. It's on the website, and it gives you a pretty solid breakdown of what the plan is. So as we're seeing an increase in the COVID-19 cases, we want to ensure our athletes are continuing to stay active. We highly encourage all of those that are training in person to also participate in the fitness heptathlon. Okay, by participating in both, if we have a situation where there's a change in the status of your program or where you train, so if you train out of your local area, and that area goes to moderate, but you're still low, you can't go there to train. So the athletes will still be able to compete in this fitness heptathlon and use it as a cross-training option for the coaches to make sure they're staying in shape. So it runs parallel to the winter sports season. It starts on December 1st. We moved that deadline back a little bit, I believe, to December 7th. And it runs for currently about 12 weeks, even though it's actually only technically 10 weeks that they need to be training. Like I said, it's a great dry land or cross-training program. I know that the sport directors for both Alpine and snowboarding are recommending the fitness heptathlon as dry land training to coincide with your normal season in-person training. Events will be divisioned, they will be awarded. It is all based on improvement. So in the heptathlon, you essentially have a menu of 26 events you can participate. You can participate in. The athletes or unified partners pick 7 of those. There is a point system awarded with their how many reps they complete, how fast they complete them, whatever the parameters are. It's converted into a point system. So no matter what 7 events you pick, you can be divisioned against people that pick 7 other events. The scoring is balanced out. But so the athletes will be divisioned and awarded based on the percentage of improvement that they show from a baseline that we'll get in the first week to the midpoint and then to the end of the season. So their percentage of improvement, they'll be divisioned off of their percentage of improvement, and then at the end awarded in the same way. And the big thing is, the big push that we're making, we want to make sure our athletes are active and maintaining a level of fitness. So they have to be participating in something to be considered for the 2022 USA Games. Fitness heptathlon is a turnkey, again, to use that line, dry land training program for all of your athletes that helps them be eligible for the USA Games, allows them to get awarded whether or not we can actually do anything on the snow. And then, also keeps them active and moving. So like I noted, there'll be a selected of 7 events, heptathlon, from a list of 26 exercises in the areas of strength, agility, and endurance. There's a fact sheet for coaches, and we also have a fact sheet for the athletes. The challenge is to see how much they can improve in these 7 exercises over the course of a 10-week training program. The options for them to be able to compete is as an individual, a pair, a 4-person team, a unified pair, or a 4-person unified team. It's a coach-led programs. Coaches can also participate as unified partners. So this is the one time they can be in a dual role. So, if you want to get in there and mix it up with your athletes, you can be a unified pair or make a unified team with your athletes. All participants must either have a current medical file on form. There is also an e-waiver that we're going to allow for the fitness heptathlon as well. So, if it's a unified partner that may not have a medical on file, you can fill out this e-waiver and be good to go. Oops, I clicked on a link, didn't mean to. So how does it go along? So we have a coach resource page. We've been producing this stuff for all kinds of sports. That's available. There's a webinar that has been recorded. Jen and Lauren Salter put on a great webinar to teach the coaches how to work through the fitness heptathlon. And there are week-by-week training plans on the website as well. So the goal is to have 2 trainings per week. At least one would be led virtually by a coach. So you can do, the athlete can do 1 training on their own, but then we want to have like a Zoom or a FaceTime or some kind of interaction just to make sure, check in with the athlete, make sure they're doing everything right. Participants should get their heart rate up by pushing themselves throughout these training sessions. I'm working with another group in SOPA to get some resources for the coaches to be able to help increase the athlete's exertion in these virtual environments. I know that's a major challenge right now. Athlete and their partner should train on their own in their 7 selected activities several times per week, just to see the best improvement throughout. So competition-wise, coaches must communicate with their participation to the program sport and competition coordinator, and then things will be managed from there the same way we manage the rest of our data currently. There's a Google form that the sport and competition coordinator will fill out. We'll collect the data through there. We'll plug it into GMS because we're setting up GMS to be able to manage all of this data, and we'll follow it that way. There's the link here for the important dates for the fitness heptathlon submissions. Like I noted, participants will be divisioned based on their percentage of improvement. So we'll get a baseline score in December. Halfway through, I think it's in early January, the coaches will report out on the athlete or partner's progress. That's what we'll plug into GMS to determine the percentage of improvement. And then we'll division there. And then at the end, so was it February 19th, I believe was the date, we'll get our final scores in. We'll take all of those, we'll award them out, and we will recognize that with our Winter Games recognition as well. But again, I really cannot sell this hard enough. It is a fantastic program. It gets your athletes moving. And again, it's a fail-safe. So if your program has to change their status, the athletes continue to be active. And then at the end of the year, when we have our Winter Games wrap up, the athletes will be able to earn medals in their traditional sport. So skiing, snowboarding, cross country, whatever it might be, as well as fitness heptathlon. So it is bonus hardware for your athletes. And I know pretty much all of our athletes like to rack those up on their wall. So highly recommend this. Pass it back to Bruce.
All right, one more slide, Mike.
Gotcha.
All right. So virtual Winter Games this year, we will be combining indoor Winter Games as well as Winter Games. We're going to shift that until March 5th through the 7th. As Mike mentioned, the 2021 state competition dates are located on there. He reviewed the fitness heptathlon dates. Also on the 2021 state competition dates and the important dates is the information for our winter sports deadlines, as well as when you will be getting the information. Just wanted to share that the winter sports visas rosters will be due on February 1st. The entry level information will be due on February 11th, with the final scores due on March 1st. These dates are different than the fitness heptathlon dates. The fitness heptathlon does pre-training, pre-training testing, midway through testing, and then their final scores. Whereas these competitions are directly related to the sports competitions, the events in Alpine as well as snowboarding. So within competition within phase A, B, and C, this is a reminder that all competitions that are in phases A through C will remain virtual. Phase A training and competition for snowboarding as well as alpine skiing. The phase A, like Mike mentioned, will be the fitness heptathlon. So again, that dry land training. Um, just reiterate what Mike said. Even if you are training in person, we also highly recommend that you're also working with the athletes within the fitness heptathlon. If for some reason we do have to return to that phase A training. Phase B and C training and competition. If you are in person, again, phase B and C are both in-person training. The athletes will be competing in their regular events. So for phase D, training and competition, we did not allow any training sites or programs to go to phase D, but we will be allowing phase D training and in-person competitions this winter in our outdoor snow sports. So for alpine skiing and snowboarding, depending on what phase you're in, whether it's the low, moderate phase, will depend on what type of events that we will be able to do in person. So the competition team between myself, Mike, and Teresa will be working with local programs to offer some local invitational or perhaps some regional competitions. We'll need to be creative in how we organize our competitions so we can make sure that we stay within the parameters that are outlined within the return to activities plan. As an example, we may need to stagger some start times so there's smaller groups, maybe host at different multiple sites across the state in order to offer some type of competition. So stay tuned for that, but we are hoping and trying to plan some type of in-person competition for the athletes in alpine and snowboarding. Additionally, we'll look at the training numbers to see what everyone is training in, what events the athletes are training in, and then we'll work within those sports to offer some type of competition at the end of the year. Because we are doing virtual, our athletes can be virtual, or you potentially will be keeping scores or recording scores at each individual training site. We developed the honor code for both athletes as well as coaches. Just because there's no direct oversight, we want to make sure that the athletes, are held to this honor code as well as the coaches. Some of the things included in the honor code is that athletes will have one attempt to record their competition score, just like they would if they were in person, right? So allowing multiple attempts to get a better score would be in violation of the virtual competition and the honor code. We're expecting that all coaches will enforce the rules of competition, which would include if there was a rule violation. So if you are doing the competition at your training site, the athletes are ready to compete. Okay, athlete, I'm going to record your score right now. So we want to make sure that what you're recording would not be any rule violation. Since the honor code, we also require athletes at this time to compete on the same course as they did for their entry scores that they do for their final scores. To give you an example, like changing a course for cross country, if a cross country course that you're recording their entry scores on is like extremely flat, the athletes will have a certain time But if they went to another course where a lot of the cross country course is downhill, again, the athlete's score would be, their time would be a lot faster going on downhill as opposed to that flat course. So we do want to make sure that the athletes, whatever they're competing in, whatever um, training environment that they are training in for their event scores, we want to make sure that they're also submitting the same scores for their competition. We want to make sure that all the scores are submitted to make sure that they're accurate. Specifically, if it's done by time, you'll see that we do have on the entry sheet. We do outline, how we want the scores submitted to the state office. It just makes it easier for Mike when he has to enter all the information into GMS. That way, he doesn't have to track down coaches to get scores submitted. We also want to make sure that the deadlines are met. There is very close deadlines to competition. For an example, the final scores are essentially need to be submitted the Tuesday and Wednesday morning to complete divisioning and figuring out the awarding process as well. So we're hoping that the coaches and your sport and competition coordinator could support us in making sure that we're getting all the information by the posted deadlines. All right, Mike, I think we will talk about some rule updates.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. My Zoom started to freeze up on me, but came back together. Just reminders, our state sport directors. Mike Suman is our Alpine skiing state sport director. Strongly supported by Aaron Yothers and the rest of the Alpine team, but he's a great point of contact if you have any questions about Alpine. Laura Waite and Ashley Amato are our snowboarding state sport co-directors. They did a great job last year when we finally elevated snowboarding to competition level. So they are fantastic resources if you guys are looking for any snowboarding or Alpine training tips. Great news on the rules updates. We don't have any for Alpine or snowboard. So super excited about that. And I didn't see anything in the fine print about any equipment updates either. Just a couple of quick other highlights, sport specific guides. I mentioned this earlier. So we do have what is considered the Alpine sport specific guide, or the Alpine sport guidance, which covers Alpine skiing and snowboarding. Inside of that, it's a very much condensed version of some of the stuff we talked about. We had a much larger version in the fall that had all the COVID procedures. This is really just a couple of sheets, but it talks about some of the SOFA requirements when you're getting back into training sites, protocols around meals, rentals, warming, available competition, virtual competition situations that would happen in phase B and C, and a little bit about the fitness heptathlon. Unique for Alpine and snowboard, though, we do have a one-sheeter that we're going to ask all of your coaches to sign off on. And it's just a requirement of acknowledging, our COVID protocols, specifically with Alpine and snowboarding, having the ski lodge, minimizing our time inside of the ski lodge. We want to make sure our coaches are signing off that they have read through this, they recognize the procedures, and they recognize, the dangers that the Alpine sports, provide with the lodging situations, the ski lodging and the close contact that can happen in there, trying to minimize that exposure. And then just reminder, practice plans are huge. I've been a coach for 25 years at the college and high school level. I use practice plans all the time. I've got 25 years of practice plans in my computers. Share them with your assistants, keeps you organized, keeps you on task, prevent you from hitting that line of diminishing returns where you've been working on a skill for 20 minutes and just nobody's getting it, but you really want to pound it into the athletes. So if you stick to your practice plans, you can skip that. Okay, we'll put that on the back burner. We'll come back to it next week. Let's move on to something else. So it keeps everybody actively engaged. But I am a huge proponent of practice plans. We're running a little bit over our time. We wanted to make sure we allotted some time for some Q&A. Let me check the chat real quick here. So I know there were some issues with some guys went to check out Visas. It might be down right now. You can check back again tomorrow. I know it can be a little touchy from time to time. Tim, not exactly sure what you asked for a handout that we can give people who want 5A certified with all the info. Is that Class A certification? You can feel free to unmute yourself, everybody. We got an intimate group here. We can talk things out. Okay, Tim, we can come back to you. I know Alan and I had a private conversation, and this has been a real blow. One of the high risk factors is a BMI of over 30. Inside of the COVID resources we have online, there's a BMI calculator that was brought to us by the CDC. That wasn't something that we decided on. So yeah, I know it affected a lot of our athletes in the fall. They had to compete in that phase A. They're still allowed to do the phase A training. So for us in the winter, it'll be the fitness heptathlon. They can do that virtually and safely at home. Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. It's really difficult. Another one of the high risk factors that I know had a major impact on the fall is athletes that are in group homes. Group homes are considered a high risk environment. So group home athletes weren't able to compete in person either. So yeah, I mean, we're doing the best with the information and the data that we have on hand. Hopefully these vaccines that I've heard a lot about on the news tonight, hopefully they can turn things around quickly for us, because it's been a real challenge putting all of this together on our end from the administrative side. But just as tough, knowing how much it affects our athletes has been really challenging. Yet another reason why I'll make another push for the fitness heptathlon. I'll put my salesman hat back on and say it's a great opportunity, not just for your athletes to stay active, but it's also a great way for you to continue to engage your athletes. That's something else we heard a lot about over the fall was, coaches and athletes just bummed out because they couldn't communicate. So the fitness heptathlon is something you can sell to your athletes, and then you can engage them and check in, see how they're doing, and if nothing else, just kind of hang out with them for a little bit.
And then Mike, I just want to say it's the fitness heptathlon, I'd say is pretty important for the in-person training as well.
Good point.
Because if you are training in person and we do have to revert back to that phase A, we want to make sure that there's athletes are still able to participate in the fitness heptathlon. If for some reason we couldn't return to in-person training and competition. So if you are planning on training in person, I highly recommend that you also incorporate the fitness heptathlon. So maybe you practice on the mountain one day a week. And then the Thursday is, all right, we're doing our fitness heptathlon to prepare for the fitness heptathlon. Just to give you an example.
Tim, I see you popped on there. Good to see you, my friend. What's going on?
Good seeing you too. Yeah, I was just looking for a handout because we get a lot of people that come into our mountain and they want to help out. And we sort of have to recreate the wheel all the time of how they get certified and all that stuff. So if we had and you guys might have this already made up, it's just a form that you could email out to all the coaches that we could print out. And then when the volunteer comes up and says, how do I get certified? And I could just hand it to them and except for spending, 10 minutes, which I don't have because we're trying to focus on the athletes, trying to tell them how to get on the website and who to call and all that stuff. So if you had one sheet of directions on how to get somebody certified, would make it a lot easier on our coaches.
Yeah, we can share that with you. It's also on our webpage as well. I don't know, Mike, if you want to pull up the webpage or you want me to pull up the webpage. I don't know if we have enough time for that. It is 8 o'clock, but.
Yeah, so we'll pull it up, and I didn't even know if we have a one-sheeter, but if not, we will definitely create one and get it out to you guys, because that is, having you guys, especially in Alpine, out on the mountain, everybody's hanging out and talking and chatting. So being able to hand those out would be great.
believe me, we need new people to come to us. And then if we feel like we're putting them off, if we don't give them the time and respect to tell them how to get certified. But if we had a page, it would definitely make our time more valuable.
100% agree with you.
So, Tim, we can pull that up in a second. I just, if anyone else has any additional questions or anything, certainly.
Yeah,
you
I had a
can-
question from Dan. Just reviewing the rules for crossing county lines for in-person training. So crossing county lines in person, you have to be in that low phase, that low community transmission rate. And then you can cross county lines. An example I've used when we were discussing this was like Allegheny County. When they train in Alpine, they train in Somerset at either Hidden Valley or Seven Springs. And that's fine as long as both Allegheny and Somerset are in low. If Allegheny goes to moderate, they can't travel outside of their county lines to train. There is, Boyce Park is a local ski bump. I wouldn't even really call it a hill, but that's an opportunity where they could still go. They're in moderate and they're in an in-person training phase. They can go to Boyce Park and train in person. They just can't cross county lines. Again, we're just trying to play it as safe as we can, trying to mitigate the spread. There was something else that popped into my brain, and maybe it'll pop back in, maybe it won't. Who knows?
We've done a lot of, the Montgomery County team has done a lot of, talking and meetings and stuff. And we just decided not even to try to go outside county lines, even though we like to do that every year. We're going to be lucky to get a season in, I think.
Yeah.
So we're trying to just, hey, let's get started and, have some kind of participation at our own mountain.
Mike,
Yeah.
does that travel ban, so like Montgomery County has athletes coming from Philly, Bucks County, and neighboring because those counties don't have a ski program. So does that travel ban include, like, if an athlete lives in Philadelphia County, they can't travel if both counties aren't in moderate or low?
Yeah, unfortunately, that we classify it as their county of residence. So, like, even if, I know, Jordan Schubert crosses county lines to train for various competitions. But yeah, if he lives in Philadelphia County, but he competes with Montgomery, it's still his county of residence that we have to classify him under. So, if Philadelphia is high, but Montgomery is low, we can't have, because it's where the virus is living with him. It's what we're trying to prevent him dragging it over to Montgomery. So it's the county of residence. And that again, it gets kind of technical in some of our COVID protocols, and it's all on our COVID website, which is on our website here. It's the first banner that you see when you come on, these COVID-19 protocols, return to activities. It's outlined in there. So yeah, it's the county of residence, not necessarily the team that they're on. But good question. Thank you.
Hey, Mike, I have a question, and that is, when they fill out the code of conduct and the risk assessment form, who evaluates that? Does that go to the county for evaluation or to the state?
It goes to the state. It goes to Chelsea Hamill.
All right, so
She's
Chelsea's going to be doing a one-on-one for everybody who submits a form, and then she's going to make the determination?
That's a good question. I don't know what her procedure is. Bruce, do you have anything
I'm
on
not
that?
sure what the determination of what. So if they're high risk, they would.
So if they're
check
high
off-
risk, I didn't fill out the form myself, but I did read through it a lot. And it looks like they have to answer some questions about themselves on whether they could be high risk or not. But I don't think they're going to be able to rule themselves out if they're high risk. So somebody's going to have to rule them out. But I feel that the coaches shouldn't be in that position because we're sort of like the one-on-one person with the athlete, and that sort of puts the athlete and the coach at odds if they are a high risk category. Instead of the saying, well, Pennsylvania State, Special Olympics won't let you participate because of this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, we ask the athletes to self-identify. And if they don't self-identify that they are high risk, we don't have a tracking system to look at their medicals or anything like that to determine whether they're high risk. So we would just have to take their word for it.
Right.
But as a coach or local program, or where it's apparent that there is a high risk individual that may be involved, that's when the state office in the Chelsea, Hamill, who's the state office COVID-19 coordinator, and perhaps your local program COVID-19 coordinator could have a conversation.
Okay.
But yeah, it's difficult to do, right? I mean, they would have to
Yeah.
self-identify. We can't, for HIPAA, directly ask them certain questions.
No, I understand.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
the other-
definitely challenging.
The other challenging position that the coaches are in is that beginners and people who need assistance are going to have to not be able to participate. Is that correct? Because we usually are in a one-on-one contact with those athletes to try to help them to learn how to ski. And then there's situations where assistance is needed, like getting on the chairlift. You're holding somebody's arm and steadying them, or, walking through, all that kind of stuff. Does that eliminate all those athletes per our requirements?
That's a tricky question. I'm gonna have to bring that back to the committee. The only thing that I can kind of relate that to is like roller skating. Like we allow coaches and other individuals to like help the athletes put their roller skates on. So it's almost kind of similar, but this to me sounds like it would be a lot more closer contact, right? If it is that one-on-one.
I mean, you bring up a good point too, is so beginners don't know how to put boots on. They don't know how to put, snowboards on or skis. And every coach sort of assists in that. That's a given. But
Right.
For beginners, you're in really close contact because you're helping them down the mountain in one way or the other. You're helping them get up, after they fall, you help them up. And, our existing skiers though can get down the mountain, but a lot of my guys still need assistance on the chairlifts. So reading through some of the, disqualifiers, that's, the contact would disqualify us from having some of those people participate. So I just wanted to sort of throw that question.
No, that's a great point, Tim. I appreciate that. We'll have to take that back to our committee as well.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and talk about it. Yeah, I mean, one of the advantages of the snow sports is that, I mean, you're naturally all kind of PPE'd up. You'll have a mask and a scarf and goggles and gloves and, so there can be arguments both ways. I think that's one kind of like where we'll have to talk about it and try to figure out maybe some best practices.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted you guys to know what we were thinking, here in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else have any other additional questions? I mean, Mike, I think at this time we can wrap things up. Feel free to drop off the call. This recording will be posted on the sports offered page under both snowboarding as well as Alpine. So you can feel free to relive this webinar or print out the PowerPoint from tonight, or certainly share it with any of your other coaches. So with that being said, if there's no more questions or you don't have any other questions, you may drop off.
Yeah. Any other questions that come up though, reach out, please.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Bruce, for presenting.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
If there's someone that wants to stay on, Mike and I will stay on for an extra couple of minutes. But with that,
all right, sounds good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.